This is my Traxxas TRX4 Sport that I've been going through a recent full rebuild on because it turns out it had been used and abused and just all the way torn up. But I now have a problem. I have put a new chassis on it, I've rebuilt a lot of the links, we put a whole new body on it, done all this work, and it doesn't move. And after doing some digging and some research, I know why. It turns out these wheels actually dig into the hubs here. Now, at first, I thought it was these little raised bumps that we have here from the center bead lock coming through that holds on the inside hub. So there's just a little bit, those screws stick out, and I thought they were catching right here on the ends of the hub. Turns out I was actually wrong. It's these cap head screws all along the catch right here on the edges of these big heavy weights that I have on here. So I have a couple choices. I could either clearly choose different wheels. I could get a different offset hex for these wheels, which would push it out a little bit, make that clearance, but then I lose those fancy brake rotors back there. And the truth is, these look cool. So I'm going with a different solution. The folks from TOPCAD have these 5mm wider axle stubs and 5mm wider hexes, which is going to push all of this out just enough to make that clearance that I need. I'm going to get started by taking off the 1, 2, 3 screws, both front and rear on the inside, plus the 2 screws here on the outside, and this whole outer brass portal cover will come right off and give us the access to everything we need to put these on. That whole hub comes off beautifully, and then I just take out the set screw here for the hex itself, so that can come off. And then I can push out this stub axle here. This is a good opportunity if you're nervous about your bearings or anything, for you to be able to upgrade the bearings. Push this out. Now we're not changing any of the gears here. These have all been already upgraded to overdrive gears. We're just taking the pin and everything here apart. And now with this, you can see what we're gaining here. So the stub axle itself is just that slight bit longer, and so is the hex itself. And that's what's going to push our wheel out. Now honestly, there's not a lot to this. I'm going to put this pin back through this stub shaft. I'm going to slide that back in, put the bearing in there, slide all that back on, and then this can actually go straight back on the vehicle itself, or we can go ahead and slide the new hex on there, and it does come with new hardware here as well, and so we'll want to make sure that we're using that new hardware. With that tighter now, there we go. 5mm wider, shouldn't be an issue. Let me bolt this back on the vehicle, and then we'll do a side-by-side comparison. How different is this sticking out here for this vehicle? Like, how much can you tell is the width difference? If we look over here on the factory side, as I compress the suspension, you see the edge of the tire comes right there to the edge of the body, just right there at it. If we look over here on the now widened side, you could clearly see some of that tire now sticks outside of that fender. Not even a question. So we have definitely made it wider, and turns out the wheel spins without binding up. That's what we're after. I am clearly doing this because I need the extra clearance to run these wheels. Clearly there's other choices I could have made in order to make this work, right? I could have ground some on those hubs in order to create that clearance. Might have been able to get away with like a button head screw instead of a cap head screw. That might have just made enough clearance for that to work. And let me be clear, this isn't without drawbacks either. You know, now it's going to actually, like I said, hit my body, and I may end up having to trim this fender a little bit more in order to have some clearance there. But on the flip side of that, now a little bit wider front stance should help it be side hill a little bit better and be a little bit more stable. So pros and cons for sure. This is one tool you can use to tweak in your vehicle and make everything fit right and potentially get a little bit better performance out of it. So there you go. I'm going to get busy working on this other side and finishing this whole project up. If you have any questions about what I've done, leave them down in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer them as fast as I can. Thank you for watching. If you're curious in anything else I've done with this TRX4 Sport, there's a whole tuning and builds playlist that'll be popping up to your right. We'll see you in there. Thank you, and goodbye.